Gateway Park, joining up with the 400 acres of Celery Fields, linking up the 212-acre wildlife conservation park, and 650 acres beyond of rural working lands, so that we all can enjoy 2,300 acres of contiguous land that works for our community as an attractor, not an attraction, but an attractor for people to want to visit, as an amenity for those that choose to live here, and for the quality of life for all those that choose to live, work, and play in Sarasota County. Let's make this vision a reality.
Hello, my name is Steve Barron, and I'm a property owner and a property business operator. Our location that we operate out of is 640 Apex Road. It is literally in the center of the Celery Fields, just south of Ackerman Park. It's exciting times to be east of the interstate right now in Sarasota County. And I think everybody's going to come in and tell you what should be done with the parcels. I would like to encourage you to make sure that we inform the county properly as to the issue with traffic on Palmer right now. I did a little Google map, and from Palmer Road and Apex Road, traveling west to Packing House Road, actually to Cattleman Road is what I did, it's 1.2 miles. And it's just grossly under-servicing the traffic needs of that area today. And we're not sure what that's going to look like with the new development that's going on there at the corner of Porter and Palmer. But if you look just at the overpass from Palmer and Porter west to Packing House, where Detweiler's and Shell Station, then there's just a lot of commercial traffic in that area. And with the heavier trucks that are going to be traveling through that area, I think it's going to already further exacerbate an issue, and it's going to force the county to spend money that they may not be allocating right now. And so I'm all for trying to protect the lands. I'm all for trying to make sure that we create a buffer, because I do believe that the natural buffer that's there right now really doesn't allow anybody to see the industry that goes on the side behind the parcels. And I worry about the emergency services having access to the roads. When you're building this new 20,000 square foot fire station, when I just, on my way here at 5 o'clock, I sat through 3 lights at the Fruitville Library. That's what's going on right now. Now, another cool thing that's happening is they're getting ready to connect Lakewood Ranch Boulevard to Fruitville Road. I mean, that's awesome. It's awesome. Well, they're going to connect it right here as well. But I think that we'd be foolish to think that everybody that comes south out of Lakewood Ranch is going to turn east or west on Fruitville. I think some of them are going to continue on Apex and go down to Palmer and take that artery as well. So I encourage you and just want you to know that I see it as an issue, and it's easy to cast stones at a sinking ship. And no one likes having to be the bearer of bad news, but I do want to make sure one thing it happens with this critical area plan is that the county is made aware of the traffic issues that exist right now. And I don't want them to be able to say, well, no one told us. All right, thank you very much.
So I'm John Miller, and 150 years ago this was a sawgrass marsh. It was like a little patch of the Everglades. And in our wisdom, people decided to convert that to agriculture, and they decided to change the drainage from going to the east to going to the west and put the water into Philippi Creek. And as a result of probably poorly understood management techniques for protecting the best soil in the county, the muck soil, the ability to do agriculture declined, and once the packing house closes, it doesn't matter how much food you have if you can't ship it. And that combined with the interstate sort of spelled the end of our best agricultural soil. It probably made sense then, when the interstate went through, to try and locate employment centers next to a major highway, okay? But what people didn't understand was that eventually the issues associated with that additional water in Philippi Creek would have to be addressed, and that led to the development of the Celery Fields stormwater facility. no one understood, at the time the MEC was designated, no one understood the potential of the Celery Fields. It was built as a stormwater facility, and no one really got what it could do for the county. And so now when you look at the red portion on the map, it's only those 4 quad parcels that have the potential to synergistically contribute to the value of the Celery Fields. All the rest is committed. And so what I would advise, and I won't talk about any specific proposals tonight, but just to test, that when you're talking about those 3 parcels, you need to ask what can be done here that benefits the community that cannot be done elsewhere. We can put, any place we find a flat piece of ground, we can put solar panels or pickleball courts or any of the dozens of things on that list. But you need to ask what can only be done here, and how does it benefit or augment or support what we have in the Celery Fields? If you use that test, I think you'll come up with a great product. But to stay stuck in the MEC mindset that because at one time locating industry adjacent to an interstate made sense, it was completely unaware of the potential to support the Celery Field. So I'll leave there, and there's a chair in the second row there that if somebody needs to sit down, they can have it.
Good evening. I'm Rob Wright. I'm the Conservation Chairman for Sarasota Audubon. And again, I'm not going to take up a lot of time here because all of you have heard pretty much exactly what I was going to say. So the bottom line is that I want you to know I support everything that you have heard so far. That the most important thing of these parcels is that they be compatible with the Celery Fields which already exists. The second item is, with all the thousands of new people that are going to be using this area east of town, you have got to have more land available for recreation and trails and green spaces in order for them to have some place to go. If you don't, the existing Celery Fields is going to be overrun to the point where so often when we hear things, you find a beautiful secret spot that no one else knows about. And then you tell a friend, and they tell a friend, and they tell a friend. And the next time you show up, you can't even go there because it's overrun. It's no longer the beautiful secret spot that you picked. This is what we have now. We have an opportunity to do something here that can enhance the quality of life for all of Sarasota County. That's what I would like to see done. And on a personal note, speaking strictly for me, the thing that we need to always realize when we work in government, which I did for many, many years, is the fact that the parcels that we're dealing with do not belong to Sarasota County government. They belong to the people of Sarasota County. The people of Sarasota County. This is they are telling our representatives what we would like to see there. And we expect our representatives to be responsive. Thank you very much.
There's no way I'm going to do as good as that guy. So my name's Dave Bennett. I live in the neighborhood closest to those 4 parcels. The traffic on Palmer is out of control right now. It just is. There's a couple thousand homes going out east of us. It's going to get worse before anything's done on those 4 parcels. I'd like to talk about that little letter A up there, however. So Jim Galbraith got a sweetheart deal from the county. All right? Everybody knows that. Everybody knows he took a real hard run at the county to buy that southwest piece to go with it. All right? Exactly. All right, so he's going to take another run at you to get zoning changed and throw the money around and do just what he does. So what is your stance now as far as that goes?
Sir, I don't have any stance on property and applications I don't have. you have to keep in mind that we are the planning staff here. We are not the elected officials who make these decisions. And we're here to listen to and take in the public comment and make the most use out of it we can. We're going to communicate everything we hear to the Board of County Commissioners, but ultimately, we are not the people who make these decisions. Our responsibility is to provide the best information we can to the elected officials to do that.
Sir Glenn, it was not meant to take a shot at you. Pardon my naiveness. Is your job then to give a recommendation to the planning staff?
We are the planning staff.
Okay.
When it's specifically called for, we do make recommendations to the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, so in your mind, is there any way that you could recommend to the board, county commission, whatever, that what he wanted to do before with that heavy construction, concrete crushing right next to the Autobahn area, is that something that you can foresee?
Well, the board made a decision on that.
They did.
They denied it.
They did. That doesn't mean he won't apply again.
I would not second guess the Board of County Commissioners. Generally, the staff does not make recommendations on those type of applications. We present the facts to the board, and they make those decisions.
Okay, and thank you, and I appreciate you guys having a meeting tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
My name is Candace. I looked at your list of land uses and I didn't see parks and recreation as a land use. And if you look at the map, over a third of the map is used for recreation and open space.
It was there, it was public use.
Well, public use is not park and recreation. Believe me, it's a too general a category. It's not even public resource, which is basically what that land would be considered as a public resource land because it's used for environmental infrastructure. But my point is that it's not designated as recreation, and so the use is not being designed for recreation. So if you look at that map and it's being used for it. Now, my concern is this. I'm a paddler and I like the open space of open water, so I go out a lot. And I go by North Lido and South Lido all the time. And those are designated as parks, but they're dominated by Australian pines, which are an illegal plant for a developer to plant because they're so invasive and they're detrimental to the native habitat. So that's the best parkland in Sarasota County, those beaches, and you have these areas are not being planned for recreation. They're not being planned by recreational planning. What my suggestion is, you get somebody like Olmsted, and you actually plan the land use for the major use that it's being used for. If it's known nationally as a tourist designation, like the names on my shirt, then you would think that somebody who had some quality experience would be designing those uses and making them highly functional for people to use. It's a lot of land and it's not being used effectively, but a lot of the parks are. I go by Edwards Island. It's an exotic dredge and fill site. You look at all those. So even your best sites, your most expensive sites aren't being done for recreation, and you don't even designate this. So my point is that is the dominant use of a third of the property. It should be a major consideration to have that done well. The second point is that if that's designed, then the land use next to it should be consistent with it. There should be a synergy between those two uses. It shouldn't be two incompatible uses butting up against each other. In real estate, the value is location, 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 but if you have a conflict between the two locations and you have an antagonistic relationship, you have a real problem. I mean, if that's what you're planning, that's going to be a disaster. That's going to be one of these meetings all the time for every land use that goes in there, because you're just designing two incompatible uses. So my point is that since the dominant use is recreation for that, the other is industrial, you have to sort that thing out. You can't just have two incompatible uses with one of the most strategic areas in the county. The other thing is, not only do we have global warming and all this, but we have red tide. And so our best water resources in the county might be this. I mean, you might have to go there just to get away from the smell of the coast. So these eastern water resources might be where people go, because we might not have any people in our hotels if we keep the red tide up. So these water resources need to be developed well. I don't see how they can put the marine thing in there. I would rather the marine aquarium be located close to this than to be in the middle of a pond right next to a congested area. But I think you need to design these uses as compatible uses, or you're just going to have, you're just going to set up generations of warfare. It's like, so I'll leave it at that, and I do hope the county does consider getting a professional land use planner like Olmsted was to design that so it's a highly effective area for the county residents. Thank you.
Hello, Pam Bornwell, third generation Floridian, 20-year resident of Sarasota. The city of Sarasota is currently paving over Paradise, including considering Monday night paving over a third of Payne Park for the orchestra. Let's let Sarasota County be the jewel of this area. Let's let Sarasota County be known as where we the people and tourists come to see the beauty of Florida nature. Keep this land that belongs to we the people in the hands of we the people, and fill it with native landscaping for the native birds, the native butterflies, wildlife, and we the people. Thank you.
Good evening, Susan Shetley, 25-year resident of the county. And I happened to be working in the county attorney's office at the time the county bought the Celery Fields land. That was all part of the stormwater assessment program. So the quad parcels were required to be purchased by the county because that was the deal when they bought the Celery Fields. They had, it was all or nothing. That land was paid for with stormwater assessments that property owners in that area of the county paid. I don't think it's a legal additional obligation on the county, but I believe it heightens their obligation to continue this for public use as a moral issue. That money was paid for by our and that money is required by law to provide a special benefit to those paying it. Again, I'm not saying that there's a legal problem with how the county used the funds. They did build the stormwater facilities, but they should not turn their back on this property. I think they have a moral obligation to take advantage of this unique and totally serendipitous opportunity that we had to create something unique and special, both for the residents of Sarasota County and all of those across the world who come to look at the birds there.
What she said. My name's Kay Rosaire. I'm from the Big Cat Habitat. So here's the thing. I recently was in New York City, and I had the pleasure of going to the Bronx Zoo. And it was absolutely such a wonderful place because there were nannies with babies in carriages, a lot of them Russian, of course. And walking around there, it's a beautiful area, it's beautiful trees, there's water effects, there's a river that goes through there. It's just gorgeous. And when you're in the park, and it is a park, it's not just a zoo, it's a beautiful park, you forget where you are. You forget that you're in cement city of the world. I mean, Gotham, it's horrible. It's the traffic and the people. It's so crowded. And the same thing with Central Park. If Holmes hadn't developed Central Park and saved that area, New York would be a stifling, horrible place to live for all the people that live around there. They would have nowhere to go to have a picnic, to run their dog, to play frisbee, to enjoy their families. They wouldn't have that. That city would be horribly changed. And we have a really good opportunity now to make that happen here. And if we don't do it now, we're going to regret it. And future generations won't have this. You can't put it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. You can't put all the wildlife. There's a lot of wildlife out there. We had otters in our pond the other day. It was awesome. There are all kinds of rabbits everywhere, and small deer, and all kinds of native wildlife there. And now is the time to save this area. Save it for the future generations. Let's leave a legacy here. Let's do it.
I'm Susan Chapman. I'm a 30-year resident in Sarasota County, living in the city. We're county residents as well. And I'm all about neighborhood preservation, your neighborhood and mine. And one of the things that I think we need to think about is how do we make this work? And one idea I had that I talked about a year ago was how can we work having the Audubon Foundation and Selby Gardens working in collaboration. And right now, Selby Gardens has a master plan where they're planning an incompatible development in my neighborhood on that very, very small garden. And putting a greenhouse for their collections out of the storm area near here would not be incompatible. Putting a library for their priceless books there would not be incompatible. Making it, working with the Audubon Society to have an arboretum there. I heard an idea about an arboretum, but that might be a way to get the money that the county wants to make from these sites together. And right now, Selby's staff is not willing to consider that, but I would like to keep the opportunity open for compromise, to work for something that's compatible with your neighborhood and with mine. Thank you.
My name is Linda Rosaire. I live next door to the Habitat. No, it's not an igloo. It's a geodesic dome. But ever since the county took over the Celery Fields and built a mountain next door to me, the back of my property has been underwater almost year-round. And they don't seem to be able to get it under control. And I want to know what you are going to do about the flooding in the area. Nobody's mentioned flooding. We get a lot of flooding. And I would like to know what the county plans on doing about that.
Ma'am, I'd like to get your name and we can
I certainly would be glad to give it to you.
Yeah, if you do that, I'll help you get to talk to the right people. If we want to, specifically, we want to address any problems you have in your property.
I have big problems with my property. Yes, I appreciate it. I would appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Tom McFurlow. I'm really, I'm very grateful that you're doing this and you're doing it so well. So thank you. I'm not a good public speaker, so I'm just going to read a little thing here. But what I want to say is about the planning itself rather than the land. It's obvious to every man, woman, child, and bird who has spent time at the Celery Fields that this area has more in common with New York Central Park, or Benderson Rowing, or Mayaca Park, than it has with a neighborhood suited for waste processing or other industrial uses. The plan you are working on is important. It will be the basis for what happens to our quad parcels and the surrounding area. And if you get at the actual reality, it will be impossible for anyone to justify industrial uses. We're counting on you doing that. With due diligence, you'll have the most current data about things like how many homes have been built along Palmer Boulevard and Cattleman Road in the past 15 years, and the acceleration rate of that construction. How many school children take how many buses each weekday on Palmer Road, and at what times? How many units in the industrial parks are empty, and how long have they been idle? How many visitors are coming annually to the Celery Fields and to Big Cat Habitat, and at what rate is visitorship increasing? Because it is increasing at an enviable rate without intensive marketing. Your findings will reflect the dramatic changes that have come to this area. To capture this adequately, your study will need to look beyond the narrow limits of the quad parcels to the larger changes, the long-term trends, and what is coming to its larger context, the Fruitful Initiative, Waterside, and eventually High Hat Ranch, and more. Where will all these future residents go for their exercise and recreation? That's why the scope of your plan matters. In a sense, your scope will determine your outcome. If you look only at the immediate area, all you see are Robert Wacker's warehouses and Jim Garrett's rising waste transfer facility. Look a little farther, you see all the new residences. More than 30,000 homes are coming to East County in the not too distant future. Where are they going to go for walking, for recreation? Look out farther still and you'll find connectivity to Benderson Park, to Waterside, to the Fruitful Initiative, to the Legacy Track. There's a large economic opportunity arising from that integration for the entire area, west of the highway as well as east. And there's nothing surplus about these public lands. The only surplus element here is the apparently limitless greed of private developers. We look forward to your findings. Just find the facts. Then we'll all know what to do. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Briggs Carroll. I'm a local pediatrician, lifelong resident of Sarasota, almost 50 years. Been here before I-75 was even constructed. Now, one of the things that we really, as a community, have to consider is how is it going to affect our children? Because ultimately, they're the ones that will inherit the city and carry it in this county and carry it forward. We have a big problem with our youth today is lack of exercise, lack of going outside. Everybody's afraid that their kids are going to become victims of sexual predators or other people, and they don't have the space that I had when I was little to just go and roam, okay? So what I would strongly suggest the county look at with these areas are things that will benefit our youth, like park, like we have out at City Island, where you have little fountains for the kids to splash in, have playground equipment so people can come and enjoy it, the kids can play, they can walk, maybe even a dog park, because everybody has dogs now and everybody wants a place for their dogs to roam and to be free. Softball fields, baseball fields. We have a soccer fields down at Tatum Ridge, but we don't have any baseball or softball fields locally in this